If you're a larger band, you can go about it a bit differently. If you're smaller and need my help, then you better be ready to jump when I say jump.
Kat, hey, how's it going? Welcome to the Question and the Answers podcast. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Andy. Nice to be here.
Yeah, so Kat, or Katy Perry, who affectionately is known as Kat by a lot of the folks who she works with, is a professional booking agent, and she has been doing this for quite a long time. She currently is a booking agent for Crawlspace Booking, and prior to that, she had a career with the Bucket City Agency, and she was also a talent buyer for a long time with Devil Cat Rock Productions in the Chico area, which is in Northern California. Yeah, Kat, you happen to be the booking agent for the band that I'm in, Tsunami Bomb, and we are super appreciative of all the work that you do. I mean, being a booking agent is, obviously kind of a crazy job, especially like considering how right now there's, really no work. And I mean, I know that you've talked about it, at length, and, had, a lot of discussions about like, gosh, like, the situation with the pandemic and how that puts so many people out of work. And, I know that you have a lot of concerns around like how things are going to come back from that. And so I'm glad to have you on the show, because I wanted to kind of get your perspective on that. But first question is really, how long have you been doing this professionally, and what got you into it?
I started working in music kind of just from the ground up back in 1999. I was living with some people in college, and of course they were in bands, and I started working with them that way. And so I kind of got into it, touring with them and helping them out. And then I found out Chico State had a music industry program.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I entered into that and actually graduated pretty similar to what the college offers in the program. I rewrote the major a bit, so it's a special major in music production. So I actually have a university degree too, in addition. So lots of hands-on, lots of from the ground, and some college.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because Chico, because you went to Chico State.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and if memory serves, I think you and I actually met many years ago when you were you were up in Chico, and you were, I think, affiliated with the guys in Hit by a Semi, correct?
Yes, that is correct. That was one of the first bands that I toured with.
Yeah, and so I was in a band for a while called California Redemption, and we did a couple of show trades with them. And yeah, I thought it was so kind of serendipitous that years and years later, like, we got reintroduced, and now we're working together, with you as our booking agent and everything. So I always thought that was really great. So
yeah,
we're a great band.
Yeah, they were definitely wild, and a lot of fun. It was a good way to cut my beginnings. And it definitely is like such a small circle, and it's so cool to see people that have kept going and to come back around together. Like, it's such a reward to see.
Right. Yeah, and with being a talent buyer and a booking agent, I mean, that's such a specialized job within the music world, as it were. I mean, can you kind of give us an idea of like what a day in the life looks like for you when things are like really popping off?
Of being a talent buyer?
Yeah, I mean, either a talent buyer or a booking agent or both. Yeah.
Well, they're kind of completely opposite in a way. An agent, well, I mean, it kind of depends on the size of band and whatnot, but a talent buyer generally has a lot of incoming requests, and an agent a lot of times is kind of working behind the scenes, putting things in together. So like, for example, a talent buyer is probably going to be researching quite a bit, looking at numbers and what's hip and kind of what might work for their program, where an agent's looking at ticket sales. And I mean, it all kind of is the same, but it's a little bit different. I can get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and work all the way till 5, sometimes even later. It's pretty much as I'm willing to or able to put into it, because it's nonstop. There's always something to do. And just like even with this pandemic, like figuring out, being a sole proprietor and self-employed, there's like a form for everything that has to be filled out for whether it's taxes, accounting, the pandemic, a business license. There's, aside from just the actual music part, there's so much that goes into the business that people don't generally think about. So, and then a lot of it too is getting to know, like how you mentioned, our history, and then like getting to know people and building relationships. Because one thing that I really have found is reputation is everything. And, it comes back around, like our relationship, 10 years later, or 20 years later, actually,
Right.
To still kind of have functional, to know that we're reliable, and to know, to kind of have that confidence. It's pretty cool. And also to have the kind of like the humbleness of coming from the ground and moving as I move my way up towards the top. Things evolve, and sometimes booking gets easier and sometimes it gets harder, and a lot of times you have to say no, and you have to stick to your decisions, and so sometimes that can be hard, but generally I really enjoy getting up and doing my job.
Yeah, I mean, I know from my own experience, having been somebody who's acted, as I guess for lack of a better word, like a talent buyer. When I lived up in Santa Rosa, I was helping to promote shows at a space, actually at a couple of spaces. And I wasn't like a full-on employee or anything. It was mostly kind of like, I guess, mostly kind of more like a volunteer kind of effort. But
Sure.
I got to see like a little bit of like payment from it, which was nice. But it was mostly like out of my own free time. I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean, it really is, like,
It really is.
way more work than I think anyone gives it credit for. And, I mean, just the sheer volume of like emails that I'm sure you get on any given day, and like, the different personalities that you're
Yeah.
having to work with.
Yeah. Well, and then toss on top like responsibility. You gotta like, you're kind of responsible for the band's behavior. You're kind of responsible for the crowd's behavior, the venue's behavior, everything. You know what I mean? It all kind of comes down to, what you've put together, and it is quite detailed.
Right. Yeah, because as a talent buyer, especially if you are like an in-house talent buyer, you're effectively like that proxy between the artists and their management, and whomever is like their booking agent, and then the actual like proprietors of the business, unless you happen to be the one who owns the business. But yeah, like that whole reputation piece, I know for sure it's been spoken about quite a lot, actually, is that if say a band comes in and they for some reason like have like a mishap or like a bad night, or like one of
It
the
will
personalities in the band,
follow
like,
you.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it'll follow you and haunt you.
Right. I mean, without like going into like naming names or anything, like, I mean, or have there been like incidents in the past where like you've had to play like a lot of cleanup?
I mean, I've definitely done some damage control, and whether or not it was incurred by my side or another person's side, there's always something to kind of clean up. I always kind of think of us as like like the Men in Black, like we're behind the scenes, and part of what I think of myself when I think of my role in the industry is I fix things. Like I'm quick on my feet, and I can, something's going on wrong with a tour or something's happening during the show. Like it's all about problem solving and not letting it freak you out. So that it's like even on a good day, you're gonna have to solve a problem. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm sure of it. Because with the time that I've been with Tsunami Bomb, there's been like a couple of times where I know that we've had, I guess for lack of a better word, like some sticky situations come up. But I mean, thankfully they were resolved, and they were resolved like pretty easily, at least from my perspective. But I mean, that's not to say that I don't necessarily know what your experience was like, but thankfully somebody like yourself, is there to kind of help to guide through those situations, because with so many people involved, it can certainly be a benefit to have somebody who's a little bit outside and removed to kind of be the person to handle that. And maybe they don't have as much. I mean, it's not to say that you don't have buy-in, because of course you have buy-in, and this does come back to, like you said, your reputation, and like that's such an important factor in this. But these relationships that we build amongst each other, from the people who run the businesses, to the booking agents, to the talent buyers, to the bands, like all of that can be something that can go long term, or potentially be severed in the blink of an eye because of like a mishap. So
Right.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just agreeing.
Yeah. So with you being a booking agent, I mean, right now, obviously right now, with the way that life is, you haven't really been going at full capacity. But I mean, at this point, are you starting to kind of rev up those engines again to kind of start booking stuff?
I would be casual when saying rev up.
Okay.
Maybe more like the sails up, and if there's wind, I will take it for a ride. For like, I have quite a few bookings that canceled at the beginning of the pandemic, because that hit right in the spring, summer, fall, right where I was just loaded up and busy. And so now I'm trying to, work in some replacements for some of those dates that canceled and postponed over and over. But at the same time, I'm also being optimistic, cautiously optimistic, because just the way that the world is right now, and just kind of like seeing the response over the last year or so, kind of put a little dent in my faith. But I see the vaccine coming around, and I see more and more people hopefully doing better, although we still have our others that are doing whatever they want. So it's just really hard to tell. But I have started putting in a couple of tours, and I do have a couple festival dates that seem to be like they're going forward. I also book I have a couple international acts, and one of the international acts I actually book internationally. And just kind of watching the world all over, like Europe, particularly Italy, Sweden, Germany, those zones, kind of knowing that they're a little bit ahead of us, and they're going back into lockdown is concerning. But also at the, if it is going to be possible, but we also have our vaccines. So hopefully the scales tip out to where we can vaccinate fast enough, or just slow the spread, however that happens, and keep it going. Because I don't want to be the cause of making it worse, but I also at the same time don't want to stay on unemployment forever. As much as it's nice to have unemployment when I normally wouldn't be given it because I'm self-employed, and the pandemic's a little bit different. But it still feels better to wake up and enjoy what I do and live for my day. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to book, but I am not loading my calendar up, and I'm not I don't have anything until September where I'm actually like laying in tours is September and October. And then once I get those months booked, because I feel like that might have a chance. Once I get those kind of complete, then I'm going to reassess and look forwards and backwards and add in onto the calendar. But I also don't want to get my hopes up all the way either, because most of my stuff is generally indoors, and that's still uncharted territory as of now. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, I know that for myself, like when I look on social media or, Facebook or whatever, every once in a while I see some like video of people that I know going to an outdoor show, and like sometimes people are wearing masks, sometimes they're not, and like
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for you at all, and I don't want to speak for anyone else except for myself, but honestly, I think that that's very, I think it's a little too soon, and it's troubling. And
I
mean,
really want it to happen, but I agree. Like, I don't think, we're just finally got this thing going into a kind of more of the right direction. I don't think it's time to like start ripping off band-aids and all of that stuff. I just wish that we could give it just a little bit more to get it like in a more secure kind of spot. Like, that would be ideal. But that was also the same as how I felt last year when, we just needed to stay in a few weeks, but then the whole world got ADD, and like all of a sudden, like it was a political statement of whether or not you're going to care about your neighbor.
Right.
Wear your mask, stuff like that. So that's been probably the most devastating part, is getting up every day and trying to look and see when exactly I can go again. And then just kind of having that poor response over the last year. It's better now, but we're still a little scary. And so I'm kind of at a little bit of a loss. That's why I started to forge ahead with a couple dates, but that's also why I'm not willing to just completely divest everything and just fill up my calendar. I want more. I want music to happen more than anything, but I just don't. I do think it's soon, and that's why I placed my bet on fall.
Yeah. I think right now with whatever, all the information that we're getting is that fall seems like it's at least a somewhat safe return to somewhat normal. I mean, I'm sure that it's going to be diminished capacity, even to that end, like mostly outdoor stuff. And then hopefully if they are doing indoor stuff, they'll keep a little bit more of like a tighter, grip on how many people can be inside. And like,
and then who's gonna police? Like, is it gonna be just on yourself to like keep distance and wear a mask and not hug people? You know what I mean? It's so much just to get into that safe zone. So that's why I feel like a little bit more time will, then people can make those types of moves. But because I know, like, even just walking down to like the grocery store or something, like, so people, you try to like, it's great that they want to hug you, but you got to fight those guys off. And then, like with drinking and stuff too, and an environment where you see people you want to hug and celebrate. That's the whole closeness of the show. But like on the contrary, you don't want to go to a show where you have to be 20 feet from the band and in like a pot, you know what I mean? Separated distance. It's just so difficult.
Yeah, there's certainly something about like a lot of the shows that I think you and I tend to go to, like, punk rock shows, kind of folk punk, like whatever, ska, high energy shows, where typically a lot of people, like, they go there not just for the music, they go there for the camaraderie, they go there for that feeling of, being in their community and like with people that are like-minded, and they can celebrate life and they can celebrate like being alive. And, like that goes so like deep into like our being that it's pulling us towards it, and we're so close, and yet we still have to be resilient to just, we got to hold out just a little bit longer, like a little longer. And
and that's why I refuse to book earlier than that right now. Like, right. It may happen in a few months that we look and everything's great, and maybe I'll do some last minute summer, but until I get like some sort of rosier picture that things are speeding up, I'm just gonna wait. But it's also nice because I'm talking to a lot of my buyers. Of course, we stayed in connection over the pandemic. I've developed really good relationships with people across the country, and we've kept tabs on each other. But now, like, kind of going back and talking about dates and business, and everybody just wants to, nobody's trying to cheapen the deal or take advantage because of the pandemic. You know what I mean? We're all like trying to work in best interest, and because we all have history, we kind of, we know the value in each other. And that's one thing too that's been really special, believe it or not, about the pandemic, is like things like NITO and NIVA, the National Independent Venue Organization, and the National Independent Talent, NIVA and NITO. I'll have to give you the websites for those. But basically, it's like collectives of all the venues got together and stood to Congress and, got the Save Our Stages Act to give independent venues and, people like me that need help. It actually gives, Congress gave some money, which is a huge, really big deal, because it's been so long that the venues have been down. So, like, knowing that the venues and the buyers and everybody's been out of work, and just seeing everybody welcome their arms. And even though we don't know that our shows are going to happen, we're all pretty much working for free, but we're doing it because we care, and we want to try, and we want it to succeed. So, like, there's a lot of, as stinky as what's gone on is stinky, there's a lot of good that's come from it too, and camaraderie and relationships, things that might have been taken for granted before are now united fronts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I definitely have seen, with the people that I know, like yourself, and like a lot of the bands, and, a lot of the smaller venues here in the Bay Area, they speak a lot about those two organizations. And it's really great that they've been able to make some forward movement with that, because it's desperately needed. I mean, let's face it, like it was already a type of business, like, small venues in particular, especially privately run businesses, or privately run small venues, I should say, that were already like oftentimes living week to week, if not, day to day. So, for all of this to have happened to them, it literally wiped out a bunch of them. And I'm surprised, honestly, that more of them haven't gone away. So thankfully, people have pulled together in a lot of different ways to kind of make that still be sustainable to a degree. And I mean, fingers crossed that we don't lose any more up until the point that things kind of somewhat come back. But I mean, gosh, you're so right. I mean, it's a testament to the community that we kind of live within, to know that people were able to like put, kind of show up for it. Yeah.
I mean, it's huge. And just the amount of work, like Amy Klobuchar and Chuck Schumer, not to be political, but those were the main fighters for the bills. A lot of politicians don't care about the arts and about the the scene or whatever. But there was a handful that really pushed it through. And, I know I just couldn't imagine paying rent on a venue for over a year and not have any kind of audience in there, plus all the liability. And that's another thing too that I'm concerned about is, as time goes on and the liability for COVID, right now, it's kind of like businesses are protected from lawsuit, but I have a feeling that'll change. And I have a feeling that's going to affect entertainment insurance, which could affect the show also. So there's lots of things. I don't think that we'll see the dust to settle for quite some time.
Right. Yeah, I believe that you're totally right, is that it'll take probably at least a few years before we're really like actually back to normal,
Yeah. And then by then, who knows, even like that normal, will it be what we had or will it be the new model?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So.
As a booking agent, what are some things that you would say bands should consider when trying to work with a booking agent?
Communication. Communication is really big there.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean? Like as far as like trying to get an agent, or just like what exactly are you asking?
Well, okay, yeah, maybe let me break it down into a couple of smaller questions than that. So, like, when bands approach you to seek out your services as a booking agent, like, what would you say, to take it from another angle, like, what are some of the things that you'd say that bands not so much make mistakes with, but aren't considering when they reach out to you?
Well, what aren't they considering? There's the logistics, and kind of quite often that they kind of come in telling me the way that, I mean, it kind of depends on the different variety of bands, because if you're a larger band, you can go about it a bit differently. If you're smaller and need my help, then you better be ready to jump when I say jump. But at the end of the day, in both worlds, it still comes down to, communication. And then a lot of times they don't realize that we're looking at not just, if somebody has a good spirit, or, if it's got to be, for me, it's got to be like a package. I'm looking at what's my stage going to be like. Am I going to get a bunch of calls? Like, do I think is this band going to make it on the road? Do you have experience? Are you going to tour manage? Are you going to market? Do you just think that magical things are going to happen because I'm an agent? When I take on the job, I want to see people working and bands marketing, so that it kind of puts like an insurance policy onto my investment of labor and contacts. And so, I mean, any kind of size band that is, helpful. Even the largest bands have marketing plans. So this means the smallest ones need them too.
Right.
So, but at the end of the day, the thing that has made me walk away the most from relationships is bad communication. Like, you could tell me that you messed up, but if you you know what I mean? If I gotta hunt it down, or I gotta like figure it out myself, or you know what I mean? Like, if things keep happening that are outside of the norm, and you kind of like, it's kind of like a pain, then, that's definitely not something I want to break, let alone, unless if it makes huge guarantees and my commission is just so much where I'll take the abuse. But I got to look at what I'm doing versus, and it's on, agents generally work on a commission. There's like a, industry standard. So unless I'm jacking people for the percent, like it's got the return to the investment has to be there. And it can't, and then it's not just cold hard numbers. It's also like headache. And don't get me wrong, like things go on where stuff happens. Like I said, I'm a very good problem solver, but there's regular stuff that's problems, and then there is stuff that doesn't need to be a problem, or like if it's just foreseeable all the time and then it just always turns into a problem, that I can't deal with it. I don't have the patience for it.
Sure. And that makes a lot of sense because, as somebody who, I run my small label, and, that's a huge factor for me too, is, I feel like it's so important for people to respect your time, even more so than any kind of like work or money that you're putting into them from your end. Because like, when I'm working with a band, and if I have like either an opportunity for them or, maybe just a question that does have like a time sensitive, output from them that I need, that's going to make a huge difference for me in terms of how I continue to look at them as far as that relationship goes.
Like,
so I completely understand.
The answer might be no, but if you tell me the answer is no, like right as soon as then great, we can move on, and I'm not sitting here, you know what I mean? Like it's something that people tend to forget, I notice, and it's something that I really notice and appreciate when, and it could just be the answer is always no. Like that's totally okay. I'd rather if the answer is always no and you tell me, and you know what I mean, I'm not guessing or getting dragged along, like I can actually take it. We're tough people. If it was going to hurt our feelings, we would not be in this business.
Right. No, and I think that's great to kind of bring up because, I like in our personal lives, when people kind of are flaky or they ghost you, it's like, okay, like it's not hitting my bottom line. It's not hitting my bank account, and like, maybe it sucks and it's like a bummer. And like, it's, like, oh, like, why am I even friends with this person? But that's like a different dynamic than it is when you're dealing with like an actual professional relationship with like either an artist or a band or any number of artists on a label or like whatever, because that it kind of comes back to what you talked about earlier with like the reputation and like how your reputation is going to follow you, and like people talk in this industry, and like if you burn bridges, people are going to know about that. And like, I think that that's something that the bands really need to really consider.
Exactly, because I've had bands that I've worked with, and for one reason or another, maybe this one in particular I'm thinking of is way too much cocaine and alcohol, and sure, that's part of rock and roll, blah blah blah, but when it starts being my problem, that, and it's like I'm not even out on tour and I'm not even at the party and I'm not even, what I mean, I'm just constantly hearing about these problems. And then like I said, with the foreseeableness, like it's partying is more important than like taking care of your show or your whatever you need to do behind the scenes leading into it. And and burn me a couple of times, like I guarantee I won't forget.
Right.
And I've been in business for 20 years, and so like you have to think that that's probably come up in a conversation, or when somebody's done a reference check, they're like, oh, I see that you've worked with this, what did you think? Like I'm not always out to like get people, but if it like stood out as like, oh yeah, those guys were jerks or something, like we talk, we definitely have a inside kind of knowing of what's going on. And just because we're different companies or different agencies, like a lot of us are friends.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Question, like when you have a band like approach you to, try to obtain your services professionally, I mean, is there usually like like a general kind of guideline or a baseline that you look for in terms of like I don't know, like how many years the band has been around, or like what their like Facebook following is like, or how many albums they've released or anything like that?
Yeah, kind of. It's kind of like the overall package, but I definitely look for like a marketing factor. Like I have particular styles that I tend to like. So especially if, if it's something that's just right up my own personal style, sometimes it's just if I like the band, but that's pretty rare. If I'm willing to bring an up and coming like that, that's not very often. um but sometimes it's, I mean, sometimes it could be a member that's from a notable band. Not that doesn't always necessarily work. But sometimes it's, like seeing that you have a super great publicist, or a marketing, like you have a street team that all you have to do is make a post, and all of a sudden your street team goes nuts, and you know what I mean. It kind of just goes naturally like that. There's all sorts of different elements. I like a band, that has a stage presence, or like a kind of like a edgy look. Um, like if for me in particular, like if I got a promo photo of like Tivas and Birkenstocks, like I would probably pass on that pretty quick.
Right.
But if I got a promo photo of, like black outfits, or some sort of like cool stage, some sort of element that makes it edgy, like that might actually draw my eye over something else. But then again, I also need to like the music. But sometimes, sometimes there's bands that are really great to be in business with, and not all times are times when I'm fully in love with music, but we can have a good relationship working. And that's something that I learned from being a promoter, was I had to have a bunch of other shows to pay for the shows that I personally really liked.
Right.
So like, I would sell out some cover thing and take some money and invest it into my punk stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, if I could have it, there's no one perfect way, or some people are connected with TV spots and or movies scores, and everybody has a different situation.
Right. Well, and I think that makes
A lot of
sense.
times too, like and even more importantly too, is like tour history, like where I could say like, show me your tour history, and I could actually look and see like, okay, I book all of these same venues that you play, I know all of these people, it's not going to take me anything extra, I don't have to learn anything, you know what I mean? Like this, all I have to do is just send an email, and all of a sudden I've got your tour ready.
Right.
Or like then some I look at and it's like the only shows that they book are with their friends that live in a city that that only promote shows like once a month, and then all of a sudden, and like they want their homie deal, like I don't want any of that. So it's pretty broad on what it could actually be. But like, I mean, if somebody comes at you and they have, a pretty decent looking package as far as overall, plus a decent tour history, like you'll get my attention more than maybe even a band that just I like. Just because I like it doesn't mean that it's going to be like number one.
Sure. I mean, it sounds like you're both interested in trying to, maintain your business, model, as it is, but also kind of cater to your own personal, preferences when you can, which
Yeah.
I think is a great way to balance it all out. Because I mean, you want to like what you want to, you want to like what you're doing. You don't want to make it all about business, but you're willing to go there if you need to. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I have the flexibility. I could pick a couple and bring them up, or you could just hang out over in, a routine, just strict business model. Either way goes.
Got it. Well, yeah, I think that's all really great information. I mean, hopefully people will kind of, take that to heart when they consider, reaching out to, either yourself or somebody else who's, another booking agent. But, I wanted to kind of break over to the last couple of questions that I have for you. The first one is, and I asked these two to everyone that I have on the show, is who are some artists that you think should be on people's radar right now?
Well, I've got a couple kind of independent, smaller, undergroundy type ideas in mind for this question. Obviously, I didn't want to think too mainstream, so I went kind of more larger mainstream or larger underground type ones. But have you heard of a band called Iron Chic out of the East Coast?
I sure have, yeah.
I love those guys. So those guys made my radar list, along with Shannon and the Clams and Shannon Shaw. Totally timeless, totally just aesthetically cool. I really enjoy their shows, and the records are really cool. I really like it. So, and also the Oakland connection, I gotta love the Bay Area.
Totally.
And then another one actually from there that I've been a fan of for a really long time, and that has an album coming out. I don't know that it's out quite yet, but it's on our friend Dominic's label, Alternative Tentacles, is Spindrift. Yeah, I've known those guys for quite a long time, and it's just kind of cool to see them keep going. Kind of like that Reputation old school thing that we were talking about, how Hit by Semi Daze, kind of the same with Henry and the Spindrift crew. So they definitely made the radar list with that new album coming. And then actually I wrote down my agency, Crawlspace. We have something like 65 independent underground touring bands on there, and I was trying to think of what to select from that list, and I just wanted to say go over to that website and check it out, because we have so many to mention, even yours, Tsunami Bomb. But I mean, just such a huge swath of independent music, from hardcore to alternative rock, punk rock, street punk. We've got ska. We've got bands from America, from Italy, the United Kingdom. There's quite a bit to check out. So my fifth one goes to those 65.
No, I think that's great. I mean, like, just even looking at like the tag on your email, like, there's Buster Shuffle, the Dolly Rots, the Dolled Up Dollies, the Epoxies, Faux Replica, Giuda. It's Giuda, right?
Judah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw them with you at the why can't I think of the name?
Burger Boogaloo.
Yeah, Burger Boogaloo. That's right. A couple of years ago, and they were great. They were fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you go? I think I gave Dom tickets to the show at Bottom of the Hill. Did you go to that one?
No, I didn't go to that one. I only saw them at the Burger Boogaloo show.
Yeah. I've had them in the U.S. Quite a few times, and so with this whole pandemic thing, my half of my roster is international. So I like, even if America pops back to life, a lot of what I did was import international acts into the United States, and with the travel bans, and then they multiplied the price of the visa and the cost of withholding and everything else. It is just almost untouchable. It is so sad.
Yeah, I've heard about
But
that. That's really unfortunate.
yeah, yeah. So, but when you said Judah, that made me think to mention that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely like a hot button item that was on the radar there for a little bit. And I mean, it's going to go both ways too, because, you know, bands from the US trying to go over to the UK or to anywhere in Europe. Well, specifically the UK. I know that with Brexit, like that's a big deal with that. But
well, and they changed the entry rules over to get into the UK. So now you have to have, you know, X amount sitting in your bank account. You have to have, you know, but US people bands are complaining about that, but the actuality of being a foreign band trying to get into the US is amazing how much work has to be done and how much verification and how like you have to have you have to have notable people from the industry, like named figures, write personalized letters vouching for you to come in here, plus like all the costs and everything. It is just insane.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow, yeah, I didn't realize that. Well, I mean fuck.
Yeah, so
just make it even harder. Yeah,
so that's another, like, so even America comes back, like I'm still hurt.
right.
But I mean that just kind of leaves a little bit of room, you know. I'm not anxious to super sign anything quick, but you know, once things get going, I have a little bit of room.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, that your guys' roster is really awesome. I mean, we're super stoked to be on that roster as well. And, you know, everyone should definitely go check it out, because you're right. Like there's a ton of great bands on there. But yeah, moving on to my last question is, and I know that people generally hate this question, but I love asking it. If you only had 5 albums to listen to on like a desert island, what would they be?
All right. I went for a healthy mix. Granted, my 5 albums will probably change tomorrow, just because I like so much music across the board. So I just kind of, I think this was where my mood was. But I gave myself a healthy mix to go on that island with. So, of course, I got to take L7. Bricks are heavy. There's just no way I could live without it. That is going. And then kind of cheated, but the Buzzcocks singles going steady. It's that compilation album that they did to break into the US back in the 70s. Super good record. So many songs on there. So that one's coming. A little bit grungier, darker Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath. It's a super good record. Stiff Little Fingers, Nobody's Heroes, and then to bring in my kind of new wave obsession as Gary Newman, The Pleasure Principle. Gary was also the guy from the Cars.
Right. Yeah, that's a really great list. I love the fact that you've got like some really heavy music in there. Yeah, because a lot of people like tend to gravitate more towards like a little bit more lighthearted music. I've noticed when I ask this question.
Not me. I rock out. I am going to, if I'm on my island, I'm going to crank up my stereo and we're going to have some fun.
Yeah. I figure it's got to be something that you just are going to fully like appreciate from top to bottom, because you can't leave anything to like question there. Cause like if there's like a couple of songs on an album that you're just like, skip this one. Like, I think that's a bad choice. But
well, and then remember the days when like you'd get a whole album and like the entire thing would just be so epic, you know, and then that takes some serious talent to come up with. So to even think of albums that are solid the whole way through is a whole talent in its own.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I'm with you. Like my list changes, you know, pretty often. I always tell people like the 2 that I would probably keep consistently would be a Smashing Pumpkins record and a Fugazi record, but even those would probably like the record itself would change. So anyway, no, I think that's a great list. And So Kat, I've had a pleasure talking with you and kind of catching up. I know that it's been a crazy hell of a year for you. And like, I'm so stoked that, we're kind of inching forward to making, things kind of come back to a state where you'll be able to like, do your job because you do it so well. And like, everyone, Tsunami
Me
Bomb really
too.
appreciates everything you do.
Thank you.
So yeah, no, you're welcome. And like, everyone do go check out the roster on Crawlspace Booking, because even if, these bands aren't playing shows, like go buy their records, like go support them, because these bands do want to tour and they do want to come back to the United States. They do want to go international, and every little bit is going to help them. So that will help Kat in her
Yes.
situation moving forward, as well as
Please.
NIVA and
NITO.
NITO. Yeah, definitely check out both of those. We'll add links to everything so that people can check it out. But Kat, I hope you have a really good rest of your day, and I thank you so much for coming on to the show and talking about your life as a professional booking agent. Thank you.
Awesome, Andy. It's my pleasure.
Talk soon.
Bye.